Hello and everybody, welcome back to Chopped Greens.
Hello.
I am your host, Philip Amerine, and back with my guest host, Gary Boucher.
The king himself.
The king of what?
All things Boucher.
Bougie or Bouger?
Bad and Boucher.
Bad and Boucher.
The new song by Migos, Bad and Boucher.
Do you know what the word bougie means?
No.
What it refers to?
I don't. Everyone says it. I have no idea. Everyone goes, man, you're so bougie. I'm like, what does that mean?
Apparently it means fake rich. Like you're
fake rich.
You put on fake Armani and fake
Gucci.
I'm
all about like shopping in those sketchy knockoff street clothing racks that they have like in LA. If you go to those shopping districts where you can get really bougie over there.
Yeah, would you mind wearing fake Jordans or something?
Oh my gosh, I would love to. Like if you go to like those discount like secondhand clothing places and they have just like knockoff Nike, the logo is like slightly too curved or something.
Yeah. It's just go it instead of just do it.
just audit, ODIT.
Have you ever had a favorite present, a favorite Nike brand given to you as a present for some occasion or something?
I have Kevin Durant's first backpack that he came out with. I have the the KD 3.5. It's like turquoise and like neon green. And it's really cool.
When did you get that?
I was like 15.
You were 15? Like, did you get it for your birthday?
Yes. My 15th birthday. Got it when I was in high school.
So for every birthday since then, you probably received a gift, right?
Yes.
It's somewhat of a tradition for you, yeah?
I suppose. Most likely.
In case you're getting lost here, where I'm trying to go with this is one of the movies we reviewed this week centers heavily around the theme tradition.
Yes.
And we'll start off this podcast by talking about Dead Poets Society. Mm-hmm. All right?
Carpe Diem.
Yes. It was a movie that came out in 1989.
Dawn of a new era. Dino of a new era.
Dino.
Yes.
Yes. Tyrannosaurus wrecked that quote, didn't you?
Oh my gosh, Matt.
As far as the Oscars awards, it was nominated for Best Director, Picture, and even Actor for Robin Williams.
Surprising. He was more of a supporter, I think, but...
Yeah, of course. But I think in a full movie full of supporting roles... He was probably the main supporting role, so that's probably why they attributed that to him. And it won for Best Writing and Screenplay. It won for Best Writing and Best Screenplay by Tom Shulman. And, of course... Some of the cast members.
Is that a fair win? Because half the movie was like quotes from like famous American poems.
That's true. It was more.
Is it really the best original screenplay?
It was a copyright infringement.
Exactly.
Screenplay. Of course, we know some of the actors in the movie. Robin Williams, of course, was John Keating. Yep. Robert Sean Leonard, Neil Perry, one of the children actors we found in this. Mm-hmm. A young Ethan Hawke.
He was great.
He was
terrific.
We'll talk about him later, though.
Yep.
He was Todd Anderson. Josh Charles was Knox Overstreet. Gail Hansen, Charlie Dalton, a couple more here. Dylan Cussman was Richard Cameron. I'm going to mess this up. Elena Ruggiero was Stephen Meeks. James Waterston was Gerard Pitts.
That was a valiant effort.
I'm trying my best here. Again, there's a lot of actors in this, so I have to do my best to get them. Norman Lloyd was Mr. Nolan. He was the one...
Great little British character role for him.
Yes, tradition. Yes. And then finally, my last actor of note was Kurtwood Smith. Of course, we probably all know him better as that 70s show dad.
Yes.
Red. A couple notable people in this. Mm-hmm. And I think it's well established even from the opening moments of this movie, the theme of tradition, like I was saying earlier. Mm-hmm. We open up on a shot of bagpipes, children getting ready inside this, what we think would be
a cathedral,
church, something along those lines.
It's like a brick and mortar, like stained glass window church. It's like really stuffy. Yeah. They all sit there in suits and they sing like Latin hymns and everything. It's very rooted in, that kind of East Coast Ivy League tradition.
And what are the first words we see outside of cast biographical subtitle notes? We see tradition on a banner. And that really, I think, is subliminal messaging that was purposefully put in there to really help set the tone. Now, there is an argument that they might have overdone it throughout the course of the movie of hitting on the tone, tradition.
Yes.
I
think that actually, like, Mr. Nolan has a line that goes exactly like how you just said it. Tradition, tradition, tradition.
Yes.
He marches around and he goes, boys, tradition.
Yes, and he comes away very held on to the past.
Yeah, he's
very strict set of guidelines, rule and dictate how his character continues forward through life and how it makes successful boys. I mean, they're very proud of their graduation rate,
their success, their history, all the Ivy League graduates they have,
and they attribute that, and the parents who send their children to that boarding school put the cause of that to be tradition. So there is some validity to it. But to go along with that, they even, pardon the phrase, but they really hammered it home with, even towards the end of the movie, a scene of paddleboarding. And I did not see that coming. And maybe it just, I don't think in the time that it came out that was as jarring as it was probably now. There are a couple scenes in this film that really stand out and become jarring because they're so out of sync with what we're used to. The culture that we see in movies that we see now probably wouldn't show that, or they would make a bigger deal out of them. They don't seem as normalized as they appeared to have been because they were just so casually dropped in there. But the scene of paddleboarding, I think, really reinforces that message and tone of tradition, even to the bitter end in this one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He pulls out that studded. It's like mom's wooden spatula. It's 3 feet long. It's got holes in it, and looks at him in the face and he goes, "Count
for me."
And you can just hear,
"Whoppa! 1, whoppa! 2, whoppa! 3." And
then that boy struts right out of there. But still, I that shook me a little bit because I forgot for a little bit. It's set in 1959 at a boys' boarding school. So you get in trouble. What do? They freaking hit you in the butt with a giant wooden pedal.
That was I don't think that even back then spanking by itself is allowed for older boys. So that
was like a totally normal thing.
Reinvented form of spanking.
I feel like paddling in school was pretty prevalent up until the 80s or 90s. That happened a lot.
It was reinforced by parents until a certain point where the children who were more strictly paddleboarded grew up to be a point where it became unacceptable.
I thought it was an interesting thing that they did where instead of having him get paddled in front of all of the school, it was just him and Mr. Nolan in the office, and it was really kind of weird and personal, just man to man, I am punishing you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and he really made it a point there, and also in the beginning of the movie where I think that the whole, as we say, he kind of sets the standard, Mr. Nolan, with a speech about tradition and how holding true to this tradition that they've led to be so successful lets them crank out almost year after year a successful batch of new people. I think that it really creates this nice setting up of that tone and feeling of a almost puffy atmosphere. Not good, but it's just very hoity-toity, and that's influenced by, as we see in a montage after that, as the boys actually go throughout their first school day, the tone set by the strict teachers thereafter. I think that it really...
Trigonometry is a study of triangles, and you may study your angles for 6 hours a night. It's all that stuff.
Yeah, even one of the teachers I remember said that your first 30 pages there will be a test tomorrow.
There's a test tomorrow. He's like, your first 20 questions in chemistry due tomorrow.
I don't know that this set was particularly, it was sort of set in the boys' perspective of things. It was in their eye of view of how this all turned out. Mm-hmm. So I kind of actually gave them credit for truly capturing the viewpoint of what learning is in school. Even, I don't know if per se that's how the director was like, this is actually how it was, or how the boys viewed it. But I can tell you for sure, as somebody who just came through that whole school system more recently, it always felt like the teachers just gave you thing after thing after thing, and it
just
felt
busy work and deadlines. It gave me a crazy post-traumatic flashback to my senior year of high school, because the senior year it gets so stressful. You're expected to apply for colleges and make your grades the best they can possibly be. And when he started going around saying first 20 questions are due tomorrow, I got butterflies in my stomach. I was like, how are they going to do it? How are they going to turn it in? They can't do it.
That's not possible.
They can't do it.
They truly did capture that feeling of nostalgia, of not a good nostalgia, but where you have that overwhelmed feeling of I have an essay due tomorrow, when it just gets worse from that point on.
Trigonometry. One thing about college, I'd take 4 classes at a time. High school, you had like 7 classes at a time, and they were all just, just busy work. It's like, oh my god.
None of them cared about each other.
No.
Like, oh, do you
teachers are not in cahoots, or they're in bad cahoots.
Yeah, they're colluding against you. But Robin Williams played a teacher that was very much against that mold, very much against that grain.
That's all this whole thing is about.
That's what this whole story essentially boils down to.
It's coming into your own and breaking free from tradition.
When I think Robin tells the students, well, come on, rip those pages out.
Yeah.
It jars you. It jars you to whatever sense we hold learning and education as well as books, because I think that as a society of Americans, at least, we kind of actually set this respectability to books when we have institutes of libraries, when we have institutes of other forms of renting books, and just kind of a place of respect that we hold books in.
Well, and now with e-reading, books are like antiques, and so seeing them like tear out, like, and these are obviously textbooks that their parents have invested in, and the kids just had this look of deep fear, like they were killing like a puppy. They were like, what? Tear it out?
And that's why I think it's so successful. It's one of those shock and awe moments that really doesn't have to use ludicrous or crude language or anything. It uses the instant and the moment that is that physical sound of the...
Yeah. There's that one kid who takes his ruler out, presses it across the book.
Because he can't stand
He can't bring himself to like touch it as he does it. Yeah.
And it was actually from that moment I thought that was some excellent subliminal messaging there. I pegged him right then as the Judas of this all.
He was, and he turned out to be the frickin' traitor.
Yes.
What was his name? I think it was Charlie?
Something along those lines.
Was it like Charlie or...
And was it not quid pro quo that he was a redhead?
Exactly, because they have no souls.
Yes.
Their souls have been sold to the devil. That's why their hair is red.
I believe that is true. However, I don't think that Robin Williams' approach to teaching, ironically, I don't think it works either in today's society or in a modernized world, only because those kids were so insanely respectable that I've even seen college kids that are that have less of a respect for their teachers.
You mean they all just went with it kind of without question? They were so respectful to like what he was doing. I've seen teachers try to do that, and then all those like really jerky kids just like make fun of them and laugh them out of a classroom. Yeah, it's terrible.
It really tears down their teaching method if you don't buy into it.
Yep.
And
it's a fine line to walk to be like the fun buddy teacher and still teach things and still have a productive class with students who are all in. That's like you hardly ever see that.
And so when we go to Robin Williams and he's teaching all these think for yourself methods and this true individualism that is against the grain of what the school teaches as a motto, as a personal banner, if you will, I think it only works because it's so ingrained in what they learned earlier that it is even approachable. And I don't know if that's to the fault of the script that conundrum appears, or if it's really just the believability. You just allow it to be because it's the movie.
Because it's in the suspension of disbelief. I actually kind of got pulled out. I started to think around his second or third scene, and all the boys were like so interested in what he was doing. I was like, I feel like there'd be like a good half of the class just like not caring or just like totally jerking around the whole time.
And we did see a moment of that when that one kid they all had to make up their own poems.
He goes up and he says like cats on mats.
Cats are like rats, like pats, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it was really dumb, and then he laughed.
But I think he had a really good response in that, and he delivered. Robin Williams as Mr. Keating, he delivered a very nice way of. I think that's the only way that this character could be played reasonably. You can't be too high or too low in this particular film. Almost kind of like the therapist role he had in Good Will Hunting.
Yes.
It's a very even keel thing. However, if he reacts too harshly, I don't think the kids buy into it.
No, exactly.
Or at least it makes the actor's job as kids much harder to believe in it and to not act as naturally as they did. He almost acts unnaturally with a purpose that allows the kids to react naturally.
Yes.
And I think part of this is highlighted by him saying, "Don't let your poems be ordinary." It sparks that creative interest of that's his comment. That's his
He didn't chastise the kid for being dumb. He was like, hey, you know what? You can do better. And the kid kind of looks up at him, and then he goes, next person. And then you can totally see it had an effect on that student.
And I think that the students are really... We agree that Robin Williams is the focal point of this movie, that he is the main actor. He was nominated, like I said, for the Best Actor in an Oscar. However, his role is not as as powerful if it's not for those kids, and we believe in those kids, because really, we spend a lot of our time... We spend maybe about a third of this movie with Robin Williams in one way, shape, or another. But the other time is spent in the various subplots and storylines of all the other students,
which are of varying believability and importance.
Yes. So let's get into the children actors. I think, unlike Mrs. Doubtfire, where we have severe problems with the kids, and I think we saw Robin Williams rise above that challenge of becoming a family man when you hate the rest of the family.
Yeah.
I think that the children in this one, or at least the children of the time, of the quote-unquote children.
Yeah.
The boys, Neil, Todd, Knox, and Charlie are the main ones whose storylines we sort of see all the way through. I think that Neil, who is Robert Sean Leonard, who is the main one, I think that they all had different acting styles and different trajectories and emotional rides to go through. And I thought that Neil's was a very interesting one, because he was kind of the main one who was kind of that spark plug, that one who brought them all together. Because without him, Todd, or the Ethan Hawke's character, is not a part of this. Is not a part of this group.
Yeah.
And the preppy kids, Charlie and Knox, don't join that group as well. He's kind of the glue.
That's why it's so devastating when he's gone. But he is definitely... The film almost follows his trajectory more than anybody else's, because William's character doesn't super have a really big arc, but he has the biggest arc of the struggle that he goes against and all these pressures from his family and his friends, and he's trying to find his own way. And
he starts and ends in two different places.
Yes, more than any of the other characters. I think.
Obviously, he dies, right? So that's obviously where his end.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But at the beginning, he's at a he's one of those. He's preached to a submissive status to where he will do anything his parents say, which is, I think, to each their own, but for the purposes of this movie, it's kind of preached against. It's that ideology of being an individual and to find yourself. And so he, at the end, is unable to accomplish that, and it's that realization that he's unable to, and he has failed, that leads him to go there. So while his goal throughout the whole time is to become an individual, to become strong enough to show his father his convictions, his true art of his true passion for acting is not to be a loss. I think that his enthusiasm to be an actor, mixed with the depression of that loss of the realization of a dream, when he's talking alone in the room with Todd, with Ethan Hawke. Again, I'm gonna have to switch between those two names.
Ethan Todd.
But when they're, I think that scene between the two boys, when they're just talking, just them, and Neil talks about his enthusiasm to be an actor. He gets to such a high.
Yes.
Goes to such a low. I think that within that scene, we see his true acting ability. Yeah. And it's good. It's fantastic.
You know what my favorite moment of his acting moment, it was really subtle. It was when he's at his parents' home, he's come back from the play, and his father informs him, I'm withdrawing you from school, you're never going to act again, I'm putting you in a military academy. His father leaves, and his mom, who is in agreement with his father but is a little bit more sympathetic, comes up to him, and she's like, it's going to be okay. And he just kind of looks off into the distance, and you can see the realization in his eyes that he can't live without doing his passion. And he looks off and he goes, I was so good. I was really, really good. And then he ends up killing himself like an hour later. And it's just like, that line was like the most powerful part. I loved it.
Yeah, I think that whole ending point of him like, I was good, I was so good. There's so much emotion in just that very short almost sentence.
Yep. And he had his moment, but it was just like the tip of the iceberg of tasting what he loved to do, and then he's never going to feel it again.
It's almost that story of Icarus. He flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, and now it's just...
And then once you've lost that warmth, that goodness, you couldn't handle the fall.
Yeah.
And He fell hard. And moving on to Todd, or Ethan Hawke's character.
I think he had the best performance in this movie, even though Robert Sean Leonard was great. Ethan Hawke was more consistent, I think, and more compelling. Maybe it was like his cute face the whole time. I don't know.
You know that moment between him and Robin Williams when he goes and delivers his poem?
Oh my gosh, that's the best scene in the movie right there. The Sweaty Tooth Madman. Mm-hmm.
I think we all remembered the ending more so. It's one of those more iconic endings.
Yeah.
But that, when he's just turning him and he's like, ignore them.
Yep.
And he's pushing away the thoughts and the satire of the other kids, of making fun of him, and he's helping him to fight past that abnormality of being a loner or being a quiet observer. That is such a beautiful piece. And I think that this movie really has, at least for guys, I can't speak for women, but for guys, really identified that inner struggle of each guy as a growing up. I know myself, I was a bit of a loner, and I still truthfully am. And for me, that moment really resided in me. I know that for other guys, they struggle to find what they love, and that's where Neil's story rings true with them. There are other guys who are unconfident to go get a girl, and that's where Knox's story. I mean, they really are relatable characters for guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. One thing that is unfortunate, it's a very male-centric film, obviously, but we talked about a little bit of the nostalgia of feeling those bad school experiences and all the homework pressures. There's also just seeing that group of boys, took me back to when I was in Boy Scouts or like a part of a team and getting through it with all your boys. It's a great feeling. And going back to that scene between Todd and Mr. Keating. I actually read something.
Twirling around.
Yeah, the camera swirls around him, and Mr. Keating just covers his eyes and he says, "Ignore them and just tell me the first words that come to your mind." And he gives this beautiful poem about never truly living up to your potential. And then Ethan Hawke actually said years later in an interview that as an actor, that was the highest high he's ever reached, and that as an actor, he always strives to
achieve that.
Yeah, again. to feel this feeling of being totally immersed and compelled in a scene. And he said that scene with Robin was the only time I ever felt that. And I've been trying to he's like, I keep acting because I'm trying to get back to that scene and how good it felt. And it's never happened ever since. But you can see it in the scene. They're so in the moment with each other. It's beautiful.
They're totally in sync and in tune with each other. And that's why we go to the movies, to see real theater and real moments captured between actors and actresses, and to really enjoy that.
Yeah, and you know what? That's where...
And that's captured forever.
Yeah. You always remember that scene. You remember Carpe Diem, the paper tearing, the ending. The movie, unfortunately, isn't consistent, but it gets picked up by its moments, it's just like that.
It's almost a scrapbook. It
definitely
is. And it's pieced together by moments. And really that's the only way to do it, because it takes over a scholastic semester.
Yeah.
And you can't really go timeline through it all. You have to pick your spots.
Yep.
And that's how it accomplishes that.
And unfortunately, it doesn't have the best moments. Like when the father discovers his son has died, he runs in, and as you know, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, a long drawn out no can ruin any scene. Please, why do people do that? Nobody reacts like that.
So he sees his son dying or dead.
Yep.
And there's just a slow-mo motion.
Yeah. Oh God.
Even back in '89, where they just slowed his running down to no,
and then the mom comes in, and it's much more believable because she goes, he's okay, and then she breaks down, and then the father's like, my son, but the whole no, I was like, oh, there it is. Now I feel nothing.
I think they double dipped, and they were trying to accomplish.
All you got to show is that, and then the parents breaking down, they were like, oh my God, he's dead.
I think if they do the no and then they cut away from that scene to the next part. Or they just go to a blackout to my son, or what have you.
That's fine, but this all of it just layered. It's
combined, it was awful. It was a continuity problem.
And then, speaking of another weird moment, there's obviously the moment between Knox and the girl at the party that I was not a fan of.
Okay, so describe it a little bit.
So Knox gets invited. Knox, the whole movie is chasing this girl, Chris. Chris goes to a different regular public high school. She's dating the star quarterback. And I was uncomfortable with the whole thing, actually. I didn't really like it. Knox is trying to get her He's trying to date her. He claims to be in love with her. And she invites him to this party. And at the party, she ends up falling asleep on the couch. And he goes and he sits on the couch and discovers that she's asleep next to him. So, like, he begins to, like, stroke her head and kiss her forehead. And it was just a little... exactly. And it's... like you said, a little rape culture, not consensual, the rubbing and the kissing of the head. And then the boyfriend gets up and punches him. And I was like, hey, I would have done the same thing. Obviously the boyfriend's supposed to be like this big, like, jerky jock, but...
How comfortable are we supposed to be making the villain the boyfriend who's defending his girlfriend?
Yeah, because...
All we hear is that he's a bad guy and that he's a jerk and a jock and
the whole time he's like, who is this guy from the other school who's, like, following you around? Because in the end she dumps her boyfriend for the arty scholastic kid, which is like, oh, that's so cute. But then it's like, hey, Chad, his name was actually... Or Chet, which is, like, even worse than Chad. Chet was just like... What the heck, man? Like, get out of here. I would have been like, why are you following her around? That's what he was doing the whole time.
Perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost a fault of screenwriting. See, even though this won Best Screenplay, I think there is something to be said for it being too staged. I don't know exactly how, but it accomplishes this beautiful... You feel like you're reading a book as it's being portrayed out, and really all the poetry and all the quotes really make you strive to want to read again. Like, it accomplishes as a whole, the movie, that mission of making you want to go read and making you want to become an independent thinker and a literary artist. However, I think the downfall with really great screenwriting sometimes can be that it doesn't feel natural. So it needs to be superb screenwriting in order for it to marry the two of, wow, this is really beautifully said, and along with, this doesn't sound staged.
Yeah, that's the thing when you're making a film about classic literature and, really big themes like becoming an individual and shedding tradition. You have to balance natural with the extravagant, and that's where, like you said, there's lots of spikes of moments. Because there's a beautiful language and then really contrived subplots. Then beautiful scene and then a really dumb party scene. Stuff like that.
And when Neil says his two lines, two of the more powerful lines in the movie, I was good, I was real good.
Oh, man. That's just
two lines that an actor really made his own.
Yeah, that's just normal, everyday words. I was really good.
And really the best written things about this script are quotes. Captain, my captain, carpe diem. Carpe diem essentially is more of a phrase, I guess.
Yeah.
But really, you can see where I'm going, where everything else was scripted. So I don't know to what we can attribute, and maybe it's the merging of all those quotes and actually making it into a tangible... something that the audience can actually understand. It's almost like where you make science relatable, deep, dark, a black hole science relatable and interstellar to a regular general audience. It might be too dumbed down, but it's at least something that the general population can understand.
Robin, like we talked about last week, he's like a monologue master, and he did that a lot with taking, Keating and all these guys, or Keats, and taking all these poets and authors and weaving them into his monologues about like how to live your life and everything. And there's like 3 or 4 scenes where he just lectures and he whispers in the boys' ears and he takes them around and he gets to be Robin Williams, and it's fantastic. And he does a good job of juxtaposing those two, I think.
And I think it's really towards the end with him. We remember the ending more so than anything else. I almost struggle to remember the beginning outside of the tradition banner. Yeah. But the ending is really one of those endings that is really stuck throughout history. It's one of those... Yeah. It's one of those complete endings where every movie kind of strives. It doesn't...
So 80s.
It's so 80s. That is done almost naturally. Yeah. And I really enjoy how sometimes a movie can make you feel fulfilled, but yet not answer every question. It almost leaves it to finish the story out on your own. And that's what they accomplished here, is that they kind of really answered a lot of questions. They don't tell you per se what happens to the boys after they all stand on the desk.
I'm assuming they get expelled. But it doesn't matter because they're too good for that school anyways. They are now real artists and non-traditionalists. They've all stood on their desks and said, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," and they're fine with being expelled. They've been expelled for months in their minds.
And after such darkness in the previous moments before, I think that they really try to fight back. As a director and screenwriter, they try to fight back and get back to the audience, back to a place where they can not feel completely depressed heading out of here. Because when Neil dies...
That's like 20 minutes before the end of the film. It's devastating.
Ethan Hawke acts his butt off and runs into the snow.
Yeah.
Ugly cries. Yeah. Ugly cries are actually a hard skill to not laugh at.
Yeah.
But Ethan Hawke pulled it off so beautifully. Like we've seen In Time with Justin Timberlake, where he ugly cries over his mom and dying, and it's just absolutely horrific. It's comical.
Yeah.
And
Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Bad.
And however, in this, Ethan Hawke really accomplishes that. And so I think with Charlie punching Richard, I think that's a moment that the audience
I was like, Richard, get out of here, you freaking Judas! Ginger Judas!
Ginger Judas. He when Charlie punches him, I think that's really a moment that the audience feels satisfied, that they start to feel a little bit better. And then really, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," that really wraps it all up in a nice little bubble.
Then Robin Williams, "Thank you, boys."
Thank you, boys.
Walks right away. And then it's done. And then it closes on Ethan Hawke's face because he's coming to his own. And we feel good.
The one who couldn't speak speaks up.
Exactly. He's the first one to stand. And I knew it was coming. And it was so predictable, but it was so empowering.
You know what is predictable, though?
Give it to me.
Aladdin.
Oh, of course.
The whole movie is really predictable. And it's predictable that it was going to win on our Twitter poll, by the way.
Yeah.
It absolutely demolished.
You don't do a Robin Williams tribute without the freaking genie.
No, you really can't.
I mean, it's like arguably the pinnacle of his career right there. It's a fantastic movie, one that everyone should have seen and everyone remembers and has fond memories of.
Right. And it came out in 1992.
Great year.
It was nominated for Best Original Song for A Friend Like Me, and it won for Best Original Song for A Whole New World.
It's 2 nominations in one movie. That's crazy.
Yes. And it also won Best Original Score. And then in the Golden Globes, Robin Williams won a special award for his vocal work.
Which was almost all improvised.
Yes.
As the genie.
I think that in this opening, it's one of those openings that we really forget. Or at least myself, we really... No, that's actually not the opening.
That's pretty far in. That's the first thing I think of.
And you know what precedes that? Is boom, 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 boom.
Oh.
Boom, 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 boom.
Arabian Nights, like Arabian days. Yeah. Is that the opening?
Yeah,
that is,
and
right?
There's that Arabian merchant.
Yeah. And he tells the story. You see, in my mind, the opening is the Street Rat song, right? He's running around and
we all kind of edit in our heads that beginning.
I always forget that, man. You're right.
And it's one of those things that we really kind of remember once you're retold or re-see the movie. And as I rewatched it this week, wow, is this the most forgettable opening I've ever seen? Because we all remember that song, "Oh, I come from a land from a far away place." And yet, I think most people, if asked, what's the beginning of Aladdin? They wouldn't say the merchant. They would say the lion's mouth, the opening to the Cave of Wonders. They would say one jump ahead.
One jump ahead of the lawman. 2 steps ahead of the sword. I don't know. Amazing.
Yeah. And I think that really is a great opening that is just left. And it even goes to show you how much... Because Robin Williams plays that opening character of the opening merchant.
No way.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I know.
He got paid $75,000 for that movie. This was a travesty.
A travesty. And I think that we move on to the voice casting here because Robin Williams played so many parts in here. So obviously he's very noteworthy.
Yeah, I mean, in his one part, I mean, he just got to go, and they actually matched animation work in the movie to his improv. They were like, just do characters, just be the genie doing characters in this scene, and then they just like draw the character afterwards. It was just a showcase.
He was the inspiration. However, I felt like many of the voices were, while iconic, were somewhat miscast. And I'll start out with the Sultan. Going along the lines of forgetting the opening, I actually forgot that Sultan had a British accent.
You're a fine British man.
Yes, he was like, Jasmine, 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 you've got to marry a suitor, or something like it was like it wasn't.
Oh! I was thinking Jafar. Yeah, no. See, there's too many British people in this movie.
Yes.
The Sultan is also like a weird chubby little British guy.
Yes, played or voiced by Douglas Seal. I just felt like it's somewhat... Maybe it was a sign of the time, really, that when it came out in 1992, just they were thinking American audience.
I was going to say, they're trying to Americanize everything. That's why, in Mulan, they have Eddie Murphy as Mushu. They put British people and Robin Williams in a movie about Arabian people,
I could understand maybe the genie being American, but past that...
A Sultan, come on.
And then going to Jasmine... I actually forgot her voice because when I remember in my head, and this is one of my favorite movies, or one of my favorite animated movies, rather. It's top 3 for me. It actually probably is my number 1, believe it or not.
Philip.
I know.
You're opening up on the show.
I know.
Telling us personal facts.
Well, it's either that or Tarzan, really.
Ooh, I would pick Aladdin over Tarzan.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's mostly because of the characters. And one of the characters I remembered the most was Jasmine. And her voice, I would always remember in that sultry voice of like, I remember you from the marketplace or something. And it was very dark.
But it was really...
But when I go back and watch it and she's just talking just to talk, she has a very outside character voice of a very like wimpy princess voice. And I didn't remember that. I didn't recall that, and that didn't really, to me, ring true with her character of a very strong, independent princess who was forced under the circumstances, but was strong by herself.
It is a disservice to women characters to make every princess character have a very dainty voice, because there are women who talk like that, but in general, like you said, it does not fit with the character of the headstrong woman who's going to marry who she wants, but then they give her a very American-looking character and a very American princessy voice.
And really, going back, she was in One Jump Ahead, or she was rather like running away from the Sultan and the palace and everything. Yeah. How did that whole believability factor kind of falls through for me when she's wearing these big hooped oval earrings and the headband still. And just because she has some dirty tarp over her, nobody's like, there's like, Jasmine.
Hashtag makes sense. Logic checks out. It's Jasmine. Princess.
I mean, she almost sounded like Jennifer Tilly, almost. At times. I was like, is this Jennifer Tilly? I had to go back.
Wait, what? You know what stinks? A lot of those original Disney princess... Well, I guess that Aladdin isn't a Disney princess classic, but the princess voice actors, like from The Little Mermaid, Mulan, and Aladdin, they're not like... memorable voice actresses, which really stinks. They're just kind of like generic. We need a dainty and a good singing voice, so we're going to cast you. We're not going to delve deep into the female voice actor realm. We'll just cast a generic sounding person.
However, as much as Americanized as he was and how Britanized he was, I think Jafar really does stand out.
It kind of it makes sense in the movie. You're like, of course he's like a megalomaniacal British villain.
Prince Abubu. And he just goes on, and I think it's that voice, partly his character.
It's the animation too, and how his face is like it's so angular and
gaunt. Yeah, yes. I think all that works to his credit to become one of the best villains Disney's ever created.
Yes,
it's not the best. I actually think he might be the best.
You are going into deep territory.
Well, who would you argue for?
Better Disney villain than Jafar? Well,
go ahead, try name one. Ursula, she's got tentacles.
And?
That automatically disqualifies you.
I think Ursula is great. I would put her in the same realm. I think you can go back to a classic with Maleficent. I think that she's up there. She's terrifying. Maleficent is mortifying.
She becomes a dragon.
You know who else you got? You got the kid next door from Toy Story. Are we counting Disney Pixar or just Disney classics?
You can try and count it. It just doesn't count realistically.
I mean... Jafar's up there, but it's arguable.
He's so bad they didn't even kill him. They couldn't even kill him. They killed Ursula. They killed... Who was the other one that you just named?
Maleficent. Because he turns into a dragon and they chuck a sword at her.
Jafar turns into a snake.
Because
you can't kill a snake.
You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him.
That's correct.
In a genie lamp bottle.
A genie lamp. He became all powerful.
And then he comes back, and then the Return of Jafar movie... By definition,
he's the most powerful villain Disney ever created.
By definition.
Up yours, Gary.
You know
with
what?
A lamp.
But in his Return of Jafar, that movie is...
Absolutely terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying? Terrible. But we're not going to get in there right now because this is gonna get hot.
This is going to be
some hot takes are going to come
out. However, let's turn it back to Genie.
Yes,
because
we are in agreement on the Genie.
We are in agreement with the Genie. I think without the Genie, I think that this movie does not become as a fan favorite as it became.
It doesn't cement itself without Robin Williams' voice work.
Like you said, I think it's just by the sheer fact that none of the voice actors are recognizable. We don't stand out to think, oh, that's... Wait, who is that? Oh, yeah. That's... but we know Robin Williams.
We know him. We know Gilbert Gottfried. We know Robin Williams, but especially Robin Williams. Especially. I mean, when you think of Aladdin, the first thing you think of is, oh my God, Robin Williams was so good in that movie.
It almost becomes something normalized without him. It becomes, what do you want, Cars maybe? Like something where you don't...
The black sheep of Disney Pixar.
Yeah, I don't know who wanted Cars 2 or 3. They're coming out with a Cars 4
And
now.
then they also had Planes.
Planes, yeah. Planes with trains or something.
Come on, guys, stop. But... Robin Williams, and he also spawned... I have very fond memories of seeing the Aladdin show at Disney. Well, I've been at Disneyland a lot of times, and over there, every time you go and see it, they have a guy who plays the genie, and they have new jokes that keep up with like pop culture. But you can tell the performance and the whole thing revolves around the genie, and you can see it's all inspired by Robin Williams. I mean, they do these characters and these personas because Robin Williams did it.
Very rarely before has there been a character so defined by their creating actor or actress as Robin Williams to the genie.
I mean, he had no lines, so it is Robin Williams just as himself.
Almost to the degree of, I hate to put these two together, but it proves my point. Eddie Murphy as Donkey in Shrek.
Yeah.
Really, no other person can play Donkey without having to sound like Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Or maybe even...
It's a really good analogy,
Mike
actually.
Murphy,
Mike Myers.
Mike Myers, rather.
Mike Murphy.
As Shrek. Again, not nowhere near as the performance is as comparable, but yes. The point is that they cannot... you cannot deviate from their performance, even in great movies like The Dark Knight, where he redefined the Joker, Heath Ledger.
Yep.
He didn't pay homage to Jack Nicholson's Joker.
Define the Joker. He just added a new chapter in the Joker.
Yes.
He cemented himself, but it's not like it's not like, oh my God, this is the all time.
It almost does a disservice if they were to recreate Aladdin. I think they are. That's one of the live animation.
Oh, it's gonna be live action.
Might be. And I think that the only way that you can do it is you cannot recreate Robin Williams, so you have to make the genie a serious character, and I think that takes away from
it's gonna be different.
What was made it such a beloved story.
Yeah.
And really, another additional element that made it such a beloved story, the music. Like I said, when it opens up, we hear that doom, 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 doom.
I can get down to Aladdin at any time.
And it's throughout the whole movie. As you're sitting there throughout the whole movie, you're not only tapping your foot along, but I think for the first time you watch it, you really know that this is a memorable soundtrack. That
it's unique because they do incorporate a cool little mix of obviously the Middle Eastern roots along with like jazz and swing and then like Broadway show tunes. You're like, oh my gosh.
Alan Menken is so gifted as a composer that he really grinded his teeth on this one and showed true genius and it showed by the Oscar standards even. It didn't even win just in animated categories.
They didn't even have that back then.
They didn't even have that. It won with the big boys.
So it won with the live action films, which I think should
best
happen
music.
Yeah.
Best musical score as well as best music song, A Whole New World, which is still to this day one of the top 50 love songs of all time.
Every time Starbucks releases a new product, I hold it up high and I walk around my store and I say, a whole new world.
Not a whole new cup?
No, because it doesn't work, man. It's a whole new world.
A whole new whirl?
Whirl. Every time you steam the milk and it whirls, a whole new Oh,
maybe that's where.
Don't you dare burn your milk. Exactly.
Don't you dare burn your mouth.
Hold your breath. Here comes
Gary.
Here comes Boucher. Bad and Boucher.
I think this is Robin Williams' most defining roles. Is that even up for debate?
As far as like.
When you think of Robin Williams, you think of the genie.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely as far as his.
Unfortunate because he's not associated with his face, but.
As far as his comedic talent and just him as a person and as an entertainment persona, it's definitely Genie because you get to see everything. All of his funny improv voices, how loud he can go, how he can sing, it's total showcase, and I would say that.
So putting a bow on this big thing, Dead Poets Society. Give me your Rotten Tomatoes score.
RT score out of 100. Some cons, contrived subplots, a little sporadic. Pros, emotionally uplifting. Great performance by Robin Williams. I'm going to clock it in at a 73. It's good, but I don't think it's great, but it's very watchable and enjoyable.
Yeah, I wrote down here 75.
Oh my gosh.
We're getting close here.
Yeah. How?
There's got to be a movie. One of these days we're gonna have to do a movie on something that I just love. Maybe something along the lines of Nacho Libre, and I'm gonna give it like a 90, and you're gonna give it like a 20.
Well, that's gonna be us when we do our Lord of the Rings special. You're gonna be like, I got through that 9 hours and I hated it.
I give it all a 2.
-100 for Lord of the Rings.
Do you like Napoleon Dynamite?
I love Napoleon Dynamite.
I hate Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, I think we talked about it. But you like Nacho Libre? They're both like really offbeat.
Napoleon Dynamite. Oh,
we're gonna have to do a little.
That's the Bambi of real life right there. I hate Napoleon Dynamite.
I think we talked about this our first episode that like Bambi is your animated and Napoleon Dynamite is your movie.
I just cannot stand that movie. God. All right, so Aladdin. I gave that. Even though it's my favorite animated movie.
Yep.
It's because the graphics don't hold up.
It's 1992,
and because a lot of the storyline is forgettable. And because most of it, I think, is a plot that rests on misconceptions.
Okay.
I had to give it an 86.
Do you want to know what's crazy?
What?
I gave it an 88.
This is freaky.
This is guys. We are not in cahoots on this. We're just
two men.
Just two great minds. Just
thinking alike.
Carpe DMing around. The only movie I've given a 90 or above that we reviewed, not an older one. Well, there's two. There's Logan, which I gave a 90. Lord of the Rings, I gave a 95.
And Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, yes, that got a 90. It's really hard to get up there. Aladdin, to me. It is legendary and memorable. It's not like my all-time favorite Disney movie, so it's like on the cusp of like amazing.
Legendary icon, legendary entertainer, legendary comedian. When we're talking about Robin Williams and wrapping up this 2-episode tribute, just a quick add-on for me. I think where the audience as a whole and his worldwide fans really grew to connect with Robin Williams is that they appreciated his hard work. I think that there's something to be said for when you not only see somebody doing something hard, but they're doing it in spite of themselves. I know that a lot of the times if we make this a basketball analogy, you see somebody do something effortlessly, and there's an appreciation for that. That's something that's great. But but we as human beings have a disconnect because we know that we can never do that.
Yeah.
And the way that they make it look so easy, we could never do that as well.
Yeah.
So when you see somebody working so hard and that is literally drenched in sweat off of the energy and the mindset and the attention to detail that this man gives to most, if not all, of his performances, I think that really connects to audiences and is a big reason as to why he created roles that wouldn't be possible if he was not around.
Yeah.
That Robin Williams is now the standard for those roles and can never be replaced.
He left his mark on entertainment as cinematic and in American history. And honestly, these last 2 weeks were such a treat getting to go back and not only watch these films, but like see him. and talk about him, and I, if I think about it, I get like really teary-eyed seeing someone completely be themselves and put themselves out there. Such an amazing talent, and it just brought so much joy, even in his low-key performances. Seeing him like hold a dramatic role with the best of them, his comedic performances, he was so multifaceted and just so full of life. It was just such a treat to go back and do this.
And just one more note, I know that we touched a lot, if not primarily, on Robin Williams, the actor and the entertainer, but just a note on his person and who he was. I think what you saw on screen was a lot of who he was as a person as well.
Yeah.
There are plenty of stories. We talked about Mrs. Doubtfire, where he wrote a note on the behalf of a co-artist, hoping that they would get back in school. Another story that I read was anytime he was doing a tour for comedy or in some sort of place where he needed a room or a trailer, he would ask that the people on the movie set on hand were hired from homeless places, so that way they would get jobs. Yes.
Wow. God, and I've never heard this before because it was never publicized. It's just who he is.
Just a humanitarian.
He's just a great guy. And
somebody who gave so much to the world.
Yep.
And gave so much to the people around him, to see that it all ended the way that it did with his suicide.
Yeah.
I think it serves a purpose that we all remember him the way that I think he would have wanted us to, for his roles on the movies and what he gave as far as being hilarious and bringing so much joy to the world. I think that it's a note piece that how he died, it didn't define him, and that's a great thing.
He wasn't the celebrity who fell into depression and killed himself. He was flawed in the end, but he was still the entertainer and the man who just brought everybody joy.
Rest in peace, Robin Williams.
R.I.P. 2014, Robin Williams. We love you. We miss you. Thank you for giving us everlasting entertainment.
Speaking of everlasting entertainment, I am ready to entertain the world by giving you the best Give Me 5 possibly ever.
Ever. You've got some big shoes to fill after these last few weeks.
You know what? I have a feeling that every Give Me 5
is the best Give Me 5 ever. We top it every week, folks.
We top it. But this one, I'm telling you, Gary, they're going to be handing us our Tony right now. Like, they might as well.
Our Oscar, so our Purple Heart. We're going to get every award in the world.
Heart.
Every award.
A Purple Heart.
For bravery on the mic, Phil and Gary, Chopped Greens.
Oh, that's hilarious.
For coming up with a better Give Me 5 every week, Purple Heart.
For Gary getting hurt in the line of Uber facts.
I've been put through the ringer.
After this small musical interlude, we'll be back with Give Me 5. Man, I love this music.
It's my jam.
It's
my jam more than Aladdin.
Wow, that's some pretty big compliments to our
just like sing
creator of the music, Chris Gell.
Chris, shout out to Chris. We love you,
Chris,
man.
again. Always giving him free plugs for this excellent music. All right, Gary, it's that time of the show. Give me 5. I've got 5 questions for you. You've got 5 questions for me. We don't know what they are, but here we are. We're going to answer them as truthfully as we can. We even have Maddie sitting in with us today.
Ma petite amie, my girlfriend.
And she beat you so bad in Uber Facts last time.
Did she?
Come back and join us.
Did she beat me?
The record was, I think, 4-0.
Can we delete that recording?
Unfortunately, we can't. The listeners demand.
Jeez, gotta give the people what they want. Though.
We do. All right, Gary, you start us out.
I'm gonna start out pretty broad here. All right. So since Donald Trump's election, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of celebrities coming out saying, "Man, I didn't think it was possible, but Donald Trump ran. He won. He was just a celebrity. I'm a celebrity. What if I ran?" So I want to ask you, who would be your number one pick for a celebrity president? Now that anything is possible, who would you pick?
You know what? This is an excellent question.
Yeah, go for it.
Because I have thought about this long and hard.
Me too, because now I'm like, well, what if Oprah runs? What do I do? I mean, do I vote for Oprah? Like,
you get a vote. You get to vote. We're all voting. No, I would not want Oprah, only because I feel that her time would be too separated. Mm-hmm. I think a good vice president would be The Rock. But for president, as far as president, we've seen him be a president in Sharknado 2. Yes, that's right. I'm talking about.
Hold on.
Mark Cuban.
Oh, that's a really good choice.
Yes.
He talked about it. Mark Cuban, he's like the good Trump. He's like a rich dude who's like not like terrible, so I think he'd be a great choice.
Well, aside from what we all think of him, I think I've seen a lot of episodes of Mark Cuban on Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, he's like the shark.
I think he has such a beautiful mind. I strive to achieve, and he has so many mannerisms that I like imitate.
It would be sad for him to leave the Mavs though, because he would have to like give up all of his business ventures.
I don't think he would have to.
Yeah, he would. It's the rules, right? You can't own the Mavs if you're the president.
The Mavs would be owned by
America.
Bark Mubin.
Bark Bubran.
Bark Portugal.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Logic checks in.
So Mark Cuban, I think, would be a excellent. I think he actually might run next election.
The CEO of my lovely company Starbucks is thinking of running. It's gonna be like a celebrity reality show. Like we're gonna have
2020.
Yes.
All right, Gary. The Washington Post just released an article that says spiders could eat all humans in the world in under a year. That's right, with the world's spiders eating at least 400 million tons of meat and fish each year, the measly 7 billion humans in the world would have very little say over becoming extinct. With the many people living with arachnophobia being validated right now, I ask you, Gary, what is your biggest fear?
Well, I'm gonna start off very broad, and because there's two types of biggest fears. There's my irrational fear, my biggest fear is never speaking up for myself and getting passed up on opportunities and never amounting to anything ever. Guys, I'm sorry, I just get really personal with you.
Oh, it's alright, we're in the trust tree.
My actual biggest fear, the thing that keeps me up at night day to day, not just in my life, is insect related. It is bugs crawling in and out of all my orifices, filling up my body, and eating me alive. That's my biggest fear.
But yeah, arachnophobia, that's a real thing. So a lot of people don't even like bugs in general, so I can understand why you hate the orifices.
There's a movie everybody should check out. It's a great B movie. It was shot here in Arizona. My lovely mother was a production assistant on it in 2000. It's called 8-Legged Freaks.
Oh, yes!
Yep, young ScarJo. I think we talked about this. It's like spiders like attack a small mining town who shell up in a mall. It's so much fun. Go see it.
All right, I will, and I'll see what your next question is right here.
Next question. This is for both of you.
Oh, Maddie's playing. Say hi,
Bring in the lady.
No.
So, Robin Williams related question. They were other actors who were picked before Robin Williams. He was actually one of the later choices because he was working on Hook at the time, and they didn't know if they could schedule it right.
For what movie is this?
For Aladdin.
Oh, for Aladdin.
He was working on Hook at the time, so they didn't know if they could get him in. I'm going to give you 4 actors.
Okay.
One of them was not considered for Genie. 3 of them were. You guys have to tell me which one you think was not considered for the Genie.
All right.
Alrighty?
All right.
Give it to me straight.
Number 1, Steve Martin.
Oh.
Number 2, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Okay.
Number 3, Eddie Murphy. Number 4, John Goodman.
Maddie, I think I know this, so why don't you head out and go on that limb first?
Who?
I'm gonna say the one that pokes out to me is the one that they wouldn't really go for would probably be Arnold, just because I think the other ones, I mean, they're all comedians who could do a lot of work.
Yeah. Hey, Arnold was really big in the 80s, though.
He was physically big, yes.
He was a Hollywood hot. Have you seen Kindergarten Cop? Have you seen that?
Yes, he's
not
great.
the tuba.
Okay, yes, he's fabulous.
The tuba.
But I don't think he...
Get to the answer.
I'm gonna say Arnold. They didn't do him, yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna go with Eddie Murphy. I feel like you just blended him in.
You think that's it? Because he was also in a Disney movie already with Mulan.
Yes, he was.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
My lovely lady was right. Arnold Schwarzenegger was not considered. Steve Martin was the first pick. Eddie Murphy second pick. John Goodman third pick, and then Robin Williams.
I knew Steve was considered.
Yeah.
He was like the number one choice.
Yeah, that felt actually appropriate, especially at the time. He was pretty big.
Yeah. So was Arnold.
All right, Maddie, Gary, I have a game you both can play.
Let's do it.
This weekend is WrestleMania. And even though I am nowhere near as invested as I was when I was a kid, I still dabble in the professional wrestling world from time to time.
Okay.
However, it got me thinking about trying to remember the superstars I used to watch and the wacky names they had. So I'm going to give you guys 5 superstar names. I want you to tell me if this was a real wrestler or a fake name I came up with. Okay. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
For the gauntlet? Alright, here we go. First name, Dynamite Dan. Gary.
Yeah, that was a wrestling name.
Maddie.
Yeah, I'll say that's true.
Dynamite Dan. Completely made it up.
I was gonna say, it's too cheesy to be like, somebody had to have marketed that. Dang it, Phil.
Alright, you both are down. Alright, I like this. I'm excellent.
Hey, babe, whoever wins does not buy dinner.
Whoa, a live on air bet. Ooh. I like it. Scotty Too Hottie. Gary.
That's the wrestling name.
Maddie, if this helps you, the 2 is a number.
Oh, thanks for telling me that.
It has to be a number.
It always has to be. Scotty Too Hottie. Did I make it up?
Scotty Too Hottie.
Or is it the true one?
Why would it sound like that? I'm gonna say I'll go false.
Scotty number 2 Hottie is true. It was a real one.
Dang it.
All right. Gary's on the board. Gary's on the board. Next one. Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Can you say that again?
Yes. Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Give it to me in your Gryffindor voice.
Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
No, that's not a name. That can't be. That's too long to like fit on a poster.
All right, Gary says false. Maddie.
I'm also gonna say false.
That is absolutely 100% true.
Brutus the Barber
Beefcake?
It was a bit high on the alliteration.
I was thinking that there were like 2 totally different like occupations in that name, so maybe it wouldn't be true.
Not if you're Sweeney Todd.
I mean, I guess, yeah.
Here we go. Next one. Beaver Cleavage. Beaver Cleavage. Gary, is that a real name or a fake name I completely made up?
Of course it's a real name, because that's probably like a 90s female wrestler. Presenting Beaver Cleavage. Yeah, come on the stage. Beaver Cleavage.
I'm going to say false.
Gary is dominating this.
Wow.
If this were a WrestleMania match, you're going down 1, 2. Let's hope it's not 3.
Use the chair.
Oh my God, not the chair. Somebody stop this. All right, Gary.
This is the last one.
One. So, Maddie, you're really only playing for respectability here. Just don't get pinned. Gary. Beautiful Bill. False or true?
False.
Maddie.
True.
That is completely made up. That's my nickname.
Get free dinner!
Is your, you know you're paying.
That is my name.
Were you ever into WrestleMania? Any other wrestling things,
No,
Gary?
I've seen, like, I've been to a few friends' houses, and when I was a kid, I was like, this is dumb, but after, like, high school, I was like, I wish I was into this as a kid. This seems kind of fun. I thought it was, like, NASCAR level of, like, this isn't entertainment, but I'm like, this is kind of fun. This is cool to watch.
If you bought into it, it was highly entertaining. Once you found out it was fake... All right.
It's not fake. It's a performance art. Those dudes are crazy athletes.
It's ballet with muscles.
Exactly.
All right, go ahead, Gary.
So, we're getting a little sentimental here.
Ooh.
John Keating in Dead Poet Society is an inspirational teacher. I want you to tell me about a teacher who inspired you. We're going to give a little shout out to our teachers.
Oh.
Who's a teacher who inspired you? Who stays in your mind?
You know, I think the best teachers are the ones who hold the highest impact on you, but don't necessarily know it. I had a teacher that was my math teacher, Mr. Lindsay, and he was at North Point.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know if the viewers know this, by the way, sidetrack, but we both went to North Point, a high school, so that's how we actually know each other.
Yeah.
That's how we came to be. So, you know.
We materialized out of a high school.
Yes. We're still stuck in high school. But anyways.
Always.
Going back to, what was this, 8th grade. Mr. Lindsay, my math class. He was one of those people that was a genius and knew it and liked to hear himself speak, but yet you still enjoyed, or at least I did. I took a lot from him teaching us. He gave us all nicknames. I was Vespucci because my last name sounds like America, and America Vespucci is the guy who named America.
So he called you Vespucci?
Yes, so he called me Vespucci. And a couple other people. I know one girl was named Trailer Park because was her nickname because she reminded him of a person who lived in a trailer park and went to Walmart or something. I think, because her last name was Bajorian, and he reminded her of a Walmart bag of some sort. You know, when I say it out loud, it doesn't actually sound as nice as it was at the time. But she took it with a good grain of salt. There were a lot of other nicknames, and they were actually good ones. But this is all to say, he had a very high influence on my life. Actually left me with a lot of conventional wisdom that I really attribute to him this day. So shout out to Mr. Lindsay.
Mr. Lindsay, I'll give a quick one to Mr. Kane Wilson.
Oh yes, of course, Mr. Wilson. All right. Gary, this past week, I've rededicated myself to running and jogging, and I am getting my butt handed to me. However, I find inspiration in the source of a 101-year-old woman. Louisiana native Julia Hawkins became a competitive cyclist at age 81, and last year at age 100, seeking a new challenge, she decided to pick up competitive running for the first time. She registered for the 50-meter dash at the Louisiana Senior Olympic Games, completing the race with a PR of 19.07 seconds.
That's actually like faster than me.
And that's why I'm like, if a 101-year-old woman can do this, I sure can. And so, anyways, she is actually training for the 50 and 100-meter dash at the upcoming Senior Olympics. And I ask you, Gary, is this something you would hope to do, or will you be the old man with golf balls attached to your cane?
When I'm an old man, do I want to be that fit? I don't think I do. I see that. It kind of freaks me out. Like, in the best way, I'm happy for him. Just like Kanye West. Yo, old lady, I'm happy for you. I'm going to let you finish. But when I'm an old man, I'm going to be like the laziest old man of all time. Of all time. I'm going to have my dogs. I'm going to have my cats. I'm going to watch movies. I'm not going to get my butt up and do that, man. And by that time, will we even have legs? Or will we just have our brains implanted into cyborgs as it is?
The world will only know as we go forward.
Exactly.
And only you know the next question. Go ahead.
Next question. Good sir. More trivia. Dead Poet Society based. Shout out to Mr. R-Dubs. I will give you 3 facts. One of them is true. 2 of them are false. Tell me which one's true, which one's false.
Okay. Right. Matt, is Maddie in on this?
Yeah, we're all doing it.
All right, fantastic.
Alrighty. Which one of these is true? Dead Poet Society was supposed to be a musical. Dead Poet Society was based on President Jimmy Carter's boarding school experience. Or Dead Poet Society was originally supposed to be titled To Right a Wrong. We'll play on words there.
I'm going to have to go with...
Which is true?
The true one is obviously To Right a Wrong, because as respectable as I know your puns are... I think that's too good. That's too good for you to come up with and dare try.
A little dagger in the heart right there from Mr. Phil.
We're choosing which one is false?
Which one is true? 2 of them are false, 1 is true. DPS.
Do you want to join the winning party and guess the third one, or are you sticking with your own?
I'm going to go with... It was supposed to be a musical. I'm just going to pull some theatery magic out of nowhere. And
you guys locking it in?
Hope and pray.
Oh, yeah. Locked in for sure. I won $100.
Let me tell you something, Phil. Never insult my puns because I made that up.
Ow!
Madison, you are right again. It was supposed to be a musical.
Yes! That would be an excellent musical, by the way.
That'd be an excellent musical. Walt Whitman.
Yeah, it's very newsy. It's very newsy-ish anyways.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of boys.
A lot of...
feeling some feelings, going through a lot of stuff.
It would be a great musical, actually.
It'd be a great musical.
If they adapted it for Broadway. Imagine Lin-Manuel Miranda
killed it.
Dead Poet Society as like a rap musical.
No. Next question. Gary, I noticed the other day something very strange. I was listening to some tunes, and along came a song I was really connecting with, really enjoying.
Was it Starving by Haley Steinfeld?
Nope. Turns out it was from Niall Horan, and the song is called This Town. So go out there and listen to it, and it's top stuff.
Shout out.
And Niall Horan, of course, is of One Direction fame, one of the One Direction original band members. However, I wanted to know, Gary, just how good is your One Direction knowledge? Ooh. I'm going to give you and Maddie 5 One Direction facts. You tell me if they are true or false.
Oof, this is going to be rough.
This is going to be brutal.
I am not a One
This
Direction
is suicide,
person.
man. I'm walking into a massacre on this one.
Yes, this will decide dessert, huh?
Hey. What about second breakfast?
Second breakfast. All right, here we go.
Dinner, we haven't had supper yet.
Fact number 1. The only book Niall has ever read all the way through is the classic novel To Kill a Mockingbird. True or false?
Oh, God. You know what? He's a One Directioner and probably didn't read. True.
I'm going to say true also.
Wait, true?
True.
You said he probably doesn't read true?
True. As in,
because of their other books.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. You both are correct. Absolutely true. Congratulations. Next question.
Oh, man.
Harry used to be in a band called White Eskimo. True or false?
False.
Gary says false. Maddie.
True.
Maddie takes the lead. White Eskimo for the win. Next one. Liam cried at both movies, Marley and Me and Toy Story 3. Gary, true or false?
Very respectable movies to cry at, but I'm going to say that's false.
And they rhyme.
I'm going to say true.
Oh, second breakfast is going to Maddie. Gary, you're just awful at this. You do not know your One Direction. This is a good one to lose at, though. Next one.
I'm fully guessing.
She's lying. She knows all about that band.
Zayn used to eat paper. True or false, Gary?
True. Didn't we all?
Maddie. Zayn used to eat paper.
Zayn used to eat paper. False.
Gary's coming back. Zayn most definitely did.
2-2. Wait, this is a tiebreaker. The next one.
No. Maddie's up 3 to your 2, so you're hoping that she gets this wrong, so that way you guys can tie.
Ooh.
Here we go. Lewis is scared of yellow fireworks, but loves red ones. I'm gonna go to Maddie first here. Is that true or false?
I'll say it's true.
Gary.
False.
For the tie! Gary catches the tie.
Wow!
I completely made it up.
I knew
That's
it.
the only false one. The rest of them are actually true for those of you
If you
keeping...
made it up, how do you know it's false?
Because there's nobody who does not like yellow fireworks.
Some people may prefer red.
Maddie?
I'm just trying to
win your
cut
point
this
back.
tie.
You're paying for dinner and second breakfast, babe. It's just that
You know
simple.
I'm not paying for anything.
All right, Gary. Your last question.
Let's do it. So, last question. I wanted to wrap up Robin Williams, obviously. I want you to give me your favorite Robin Williams performance out of everything that we talked about and tell me why.
I think maybe my favorite Robin Williams performance. There's so many. Even the ones that we didn't discuss. There's Good Morning Vietnam. There's Bicentennial Man. There's Flubber.
There's RV.
You won't drop that one. You won't forgive that man.
Great family movie, man. Everyone go watch RV.
Even, what was the last one with John Travolta? Was it Old Dogs or something?
Wild Hogs? No, wait, why is
No.
that's not Robin Wild
That
Hogs.
was with John Travolta, though.
Yeah.
it's John Travolta, but it's
Not
not
Robbie.
I think it's Old
Williams.
Dogs. Somebody find out for me on tweet.
He did World's Greatest Dad, too.
Yeah, that too. However, going to his favorite, I'm actually gonna probably have to go with Patch Adams. Yeah, it's a role that I find very sentimental, and it really was one of the few that actually made me cry. And I think it's one of the few movies that he really shows a full triple threat of that he could do. He had a dramatic presence. He had a strong comedic presence, and he really was able to hold that middle ground and tie everything together. And it was one of the few movies that I probably cried at. So, Patch Adams, that's my favorite Robin Williams. How about you?
It was actually I would have said before, no doubt, Good Will Hunting, but now going back, it was great to see him do like a lot of comedy. I felt this comedy was a little out of place in Dead Poet Society, and it's between, honestly, for me, Aladdin and Good Will Hunting. And, obviously a dark horse is going to be RV, but I'm not going to pick RV. I'm going to settle, once again, for Good Will Hunting, just because I think it's his best dramatic performance, and I think it's one of the best dramatic performances I've ever seen that can hang up there with the best of them.
And you know what? You got validation behind you with an Oscar win.
Oscar win?
Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah. And obviously that beard cannot be matched. He had one of the best movie beards ever.
He couldn't even hide his emotion in it.
No.
All right, last question for me, Gary. Have you heard of the missing Richard Simmons conspiracy theory out there?
A little bit. He's kind of disappeared off the face of the planet, right? No one knows where he is.
A little bit like that. You, Maddie, you kind of know? All right,
Richard Simmons is
I'll
gone.
explain. So, do you know who Richard Simmons is?
Yes.
He's the sweatin' to the oldies superstar, and he has had an abrupt 2014 exit from the spotlight, and has had millions of fans wondering about his disappearance. They've even come up with such conspiracies as a nervous breakdown, elder abuse, and even abduction. There is a fellow podcast called Missing Richard Simmons, which is wholeheartedly dedicated to this movement. And Dan Taberski, creator of the Missing Richard Simmons podcast, did his best to make sure the fitness guru heard the podcast dedicated to him by setting up a boombox outside his house and blasting the podcast towards the house's direction.
That's nice.
Yes, I thought it was rather thoughtful of him, too. I ask you, Gary, do you believe that Richard Simmons just wanted the reclusive life he has earned after making a whole segment of America dance their pants off? Or do you go the more juicy route and give some credence to the conspiracy theories which suggest something sinister?
I think something nefarious has happened. He's too big of a personality to just disappear. I think Richard Simmons has been kidnapped, possibly by the Russians, to be used as a weapon against America. But if we're talking seriously, I don't think he just disappeared. I think somebody has taken him, poor little Richard, away.
100% right, Gary. There is a conspiracy. I don't know what it is. I'm open to all and any conspiracy theory.
It's gotta be the Russians.
That little bundle and ball of joy deserves to be unearthed like the gem he is. Free Richard Simmons, I say. Free him.
Free him!
Let him go from Gryffindor. Yeah, let him go like Frozen. All right. Let's give you one last shameless plug here as we end on Chopped Greens here, Gary.
All right, guys, let me tell you about this great blog that I run. It's called Gare Bear Reviews, GARBEAR Reviews.wordpress.com. I review movies every week. Give me some recommendations. Send me some money over PayPal so I can see as many movies as possible and give you the best reviews on the planet Earth.
$27.50 for a popcorn.
Don't go to AMC theaters and order the popcorn. It's the Bernie 2016. It's a ripoff.
All right, so join us next week when me and Gary review Ghost in the Shell.
At first I was like anti-Ghost in the Shell, but I'm curious. I'm a little excited to see what this movie's all about.
I think this will be our first diverging movie ever because when the billboard says and the best compliment it can conjure up is visually stunning, that does not conjure up confidence in me.
I like martial arts and cool stylized movies though, so we'll see what happens.
And I'm sure they weren't talking about Scarlett Johansson.
Of course
visually
not.
Stunning. No, it's CGI effects, of course, Gary.
We're gonna see it in 3D, not at AMC.
Not at AMC. Can you bootleg 3D?
You know what? If you cross your eyes, I think it just does it for you.
Fair enough. And Maddie will be joining you in this 3D adventure.
Yes, she will not be paying for anything.
Nope.
Oh, what a gentleman.
I know.
He is.
Well, why don't you escort her right off the podcast set? Go back to your trailer. I'll go back to mine, and we'll have a carne asada.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. For Maddie, for my guest host, Gary Boucher.
Adios.
For myself, Philip Amerine. Thank you for listening to Chopped Greens. Till next week.